Ladies, men do not fall for desperation. They fall for strength, for confidence, for the feeling that they could lose something extraordinary if they do not act. So you must become extraordinary, not for him, but for yourself. Because the moment you become a woman who is whole, radiant, and in love with her own life, he will feel the shift. He will notice. He will remember. And when he remembers, he will wonder. He will think back to the moments when you were his safe place, his adventure, his greatest joy. And the more he wonders, the more he will begin to feel something he hasn't felt in a long time. Fear. Fear that someone else might see what he once had. Fear that he let go of something he should have held on to. Fear that the woman he once knew is slipping away. Not because she is chasing another, but because she is choosing herself. Love is not about chasing, it's about attracting. This truth holds more power than you realize. The moment you stop running after someone, the moment you stop pleading for their attention, is the moment they begin to feel your absence. Love, at its core, is not something that can be forced or demanded. It is drawn in like a magnetic pull that cannot be ignored. The harder you chase, the further it slips away, because desperation repels, while confidence attracts. Think about the early days, the time when he first looked at you with eyes full of admiration. What was it about you that captivated him? Was it your energy, your confidence, the way you carried yourself without needing validation? That version of you was magnetic, untouchable, effortlessly desirable. He didn't fall in love because you begged for his attention. He fell because you were undeniable. And that version of you still exists, waiting to be brought back to life. Desperation whispers, "Please choose me." Attraction declares, "I am already chosen." It is the woman who stands tall in her worth, who moves through life with purpose, who does not need to prove her value, that commands attention without saying a word. When you chase someone, when you continuously seek their approval, you unknowingly lower your own value in their eyes. It sends the message that you believe they are more important, more desirable, more worthy than you. But when you shift your focus inward, when you step back into your own power, you become the woman he cannot help but notice. Imagine walking into a room full of people. There are two women. One is scanning the crowd, hoping someone will look her way, adjusting herself, waiting to be noticed. The other walks in with certainty, smiling, glowing, not because she needs attention, but because she knows who she is. Who do you think the room is drawn to? Who holds the power? That is the essence of attraction. That is the energy that pulls people in without a single word being spoken. Love does not respond to neediness. It responds to strength. The moment you stop chasing, the moment you let go of the fear of losing him, something shifts. He begins to feel your absence. He notices that the energy he once took for granted is no longer readily available. He starts to wonder why. He questions if you are moving on, if someone else is noticing the beauty he once held in his hands. And that fear, that realization, is what makes him see you again, not as someone waiting for him, but as someone he now has to work to have back. This is not a game. It is not manipulation. It is a fundamental truth about human nature. People value what they must earn. They cherish what they believe could slip away. When he first pursued you, it was because he saw something rare, something valuable. Over time, familiarity may have made him forget that, but when you reclaim yourself, when you step into your power, he is reminded. So stop waiting for him. Stop checking your phone. Stop making him the center of your universe. Instead, make yourself the center. Wake up every morning and ask yourself, how can I make my life beautiful today? Take care of yourself in ways you never have before. Laugh more. Go out and create experiences that fill your heart. Become the woman who is so in love with her own life that anyone who walks away would feel like a fool for leaving, because when you do that, everything changes. He will feel the shift. He will notice, and more importantly, he will begin to remember. He will remember the way he once felt when he was around you, the way he once feared losing you, the way you once made him feel like the luckiest man in the world. And when he remembers, he will realize love was never about chasing. It was always about becoming someone worth chasing. There was a time when he couldn't take his eyes off you, a time when everything about you fascinated him. The way you carried yourself, the way you laughed without hesitation, the way you spoke with passion about the things you loved. You were a mystery, a spark of energy that made him feel alive. And then, somewhere along the way, that mystery faded. Not because you changed, but because you became too available, too predictable, too familiar. Men don't fall in love with routine. They fall in love with the unexpected, with the feeling of excitement, with the thrill of discovering something new every day. In the beginning, he was drawn to you because you had a life of your own, because you weren't waiting around for his validation. He had to work to understand you, to earn your attention, to prove himself worthy of your time. And that effort made him value you more. Think back to the version of yourself that he first fell in love with. You weren't thinking about how to keep him interested. You were simply being yourself. You had your own passions, your own goals, your own sense of adventure. You weren't chasing him, you were living. And that's what made him chase you. The moment you shift back into that energy, everything changes. Attraction is not about constantly being there, constantly proving your love, constantly making sure he knows how much you care. It's about keeping a piece of yourself untouchable, about maintaining the qualities that made you irresistible in the first place. When a man feels like he has completely figured you out, when he knows you will always be there, no matter what, he stops feeling the need to pursue. He stops feeling the need to earn your love. And without effort, love starts to fade. This is not about playing games. It's about understanding human nature. People are drawn to what they can't fully have, to what feels just out of reach, to what keeps them intrigued. The moment you reclaim your mystery, the moment you stop making him your world, he will feel the difference. He will start wondering what's changed, why you are no longer as available, why you are no longer hanging on to his every word. And that curiosity will pull him back in. Strength is one of the most attractive qualities in a woman. Not just physical strength, but the kind of strength that says, I love you, but I do not need you to complete me. When a man senses that kind of confidence, he cannot help but be drawn to it. He sees you as a challenge again, as someone worth fighting for, as someone he doesn't want to lose. Think about how relationships start. There is always a little bit of distance, a little bit of uncertainty, a little bit of tension that keeps both people wanting more. That tension, that space, is what keeps love alive. But over time, that space disappears. You give all of yourself, expecting that in return he will give more. But love doesn't work that way. The more you give without requiring effort, the more he takes for granted. So step back, not in anger, not in resentment, but in power. Focus on yourself the way you used to. Pour your energy into your passions, into your growth, into becoming a woman so captivating that he cannot help but want to be around you. Make him remember the woman who had her own dreams, who didn't drop everything for him, who made him feel lucky to be chosen by her, because that's the secret. When a man feels like he is lucky to have you, he will never stop trying to keep you. But when he feels like he already has you, with no effort, he stops seeing your value. Remind him of what he has. Remind him that you are not someone to be taken lightly. Remind him why he fell in love in the first place. And when you do, he will realize that losing you is not an option. There is a shift that happens when you stop focusing on him and start focusing on yourself. It's almost unnoticeable at first, but slowly the energy changes. The way you carry yourself, the way you move, the way you speak, it all transforms when you stop waiting for his attention and start giving that attention to yourself. And whether he realizes it immediately or not, he will feel it. The moment you stop revolving your world around him is the moment he starts to notice your absence, starts to feel the distance, starts to wonder what changed. Because here's the truth. When you give someone all your energy, when you make them the center of your universe, you lose yourself in the process. You stop being the person they once fell for. You become someone who is waiting, hoping, needing. And neediness is the opposite of attraction. It sends a message that says, you are my source of happiness, and no one wants to feel like they hold that kind of responsibility. Love should never be about needing someone. It should be about choosing them. Men are drawn to women who are full of life. Women who have their own passions, their own purpose, their own joy. Think about the moments when you felt the most confident, the most alive. It wasn't when you were sitting by the phone, waiting for a message. It wasn't when you were constantly checking in, wondering what he was doing, trying to find ways to make him notice you. It was when you were busy living, when you were laughing without thinking about who was watching, when you were fully present in the moment, when you weren't trying to prove anything to anyone. That is the energy that attracts love. That is the energy that pulls him in. The moment you shift your focus from him back to yourself, he will sense it. He will notice that the energy he once took for granted is no longer pouring into him the way it used to. He will wonder why you are no longer waiting, why you are no longer chasing, why you are no longer giving endlessly without expecting anything in return. And that wonder, that curiosity, is what reignites his interest. Because when a man feels like he has you no matter what, he stops trying. It's not that he doesn't care, it's that he no longer feels the urgency to keep your love. He assumes you will always be there, always waiting, always available. But the moment he senses that your attention is no longer fixated on him, something inside him shifts. He starts to see you differently. He starts to feel a sense of loss, even if you haven't physically gone anywhere. This is not about manipulation. It's not about playing games or pretending to be someone you're not. It's about genuinely shifting your focus back to where it belongs, on you. It's about remembering that your happiness, your peace, and your joy should never be dependent on someone else's presence in your life. The more you invest in yourself, the more attractive you become, not just to him, but to the world. People can feel energy. They can sense when someone is desperate, just as they can sense when someone is content within themselves. When you walk into a room full of confidence, when you radiate self-love, when you carry yourself with the certainty that you are enough, people notice. And more importantly, he will notice. He will start to see you the way he once did, not as someone who is always there, but as someone who is valuable, someone who is rare, someone he does not want to lose. So stop waiting for him to come back. Stop making him the center of your thoughts. Instead, shift your energy to yourself. Wake up every day and ask, what can I do to make myself happy today? Focus on your growth, your goals, your passions. Fall in love with your own life. Because when you do that, everything changes. And when he sees that change, when he realizes that the woman he once had is now thriving without him, he will feel something he hasn't felt in a long time, the fear of losing you. And that fear will make him want to come back, not because he has to, but because he chooses to. Love is not lost. It is only buried beneath the weight of expectations, familiarity, and time. The spark that once burned brightly between you didn't just disappear. It faded slowly, unnoticed, until one day the distance between you felt greater than the love that once connected you. But love doesn't simply die. It waits. It waits for a reason to reignite, for a moment to be rediscovered, for a shift to bring it back to life. And that shift begins with you. A man doesn't stop loving overnight. He stops feeling the urgency, the pull, the excitement that once made his heart race when he thought of you. Not because you are any less worthy of love, but because love, when left unchallenged, grows too comfortable. It blends into the background, no longer demanding attention. It no longer feels like a force that needs to be protected, earned, or fought for. The moment he feels there is nothing to lose, he stops trying to win. But the same way love fades, it can be revived. Passion is not something that disappears. It is something that needs to be awakened. And the way to awaken it is not by reminding him of what you were, but by becoming someone he wants to discover all over again. The most powerful thing you can do is reintroduce yourself, not by forcing yourself into his world, but by becoming so deeply rooted in your own that he can't help but take notice. The woman he once fell in love with wasn't trying to convince him to love her. She was simply living in a way that made him fall without hesitation. She was magnetic, not because she chased, but because she carried an energy that made him chase. That energy is still within you. It has just been overshadowed by routine, by the quiet exhaustion of giving more than you receive, by the weight of love that no longer feels as light as it once did. But the moment you release that weight, the moment you stop trying to hold on to something too tightly, is the moment it starts to flow back to you. Men don't fall in love with pressure. They fall in love with possibility. They fall in love with what feels new, what feels unattainable, what feels like it could be lost if they don't hold on to it. The more he feels like he already has you, the less he fights to keep you. But when he sees you stepping back, when he feels the shift in your energy, when he senses that you are no longer looking to him as the source of your happiness, something inside him stirs. He begins to wonder. He begins to notice the way you glow differently, the way your presence no longer feels like a guarantee, the way your attention is no longer his for the taking. And that wondering, that space, is what rekindles desire. It reminds him that love is not something to be assumed, it is something to be earned. This is not about making him jealous, nor is it about playing mind games. It's about understanding that attraction is not built in closeness, but in space, in mystery, in the feeling that something is just beyond reach, waiting to be explored. If you want to bring him back, don't give him the same version of you that he has grown used to. Give him a version that is unpredictable, a version that keeps him guessing, a version that makes him remember why he fell in love in the first place. That version of you is not someone you have to create. It is someone you have to remember. She is the woman who walked into a room and commanded attention, not by seeking it, but by carrying an energy of undeniable presence. She is the woman who loved deeply but never lost herself in that love. She is the woman who had her own world, her own dreams, her own passion, and it was that passion that made him crave her presence. When you return to that energy, when you become whole within yourself again, love has no choice but to follow. He will see it, feel it, and be drawn to it in a way that is beyond logic. Because love is not built on words or effort alone, it is built on emotion, on the pull of something that cannot be ignored. And when he sees you glowing with a light that does not depend on him, he will realize that if he wants to be a part of that light again, he has to earn his place in your world. And that realization will bring him back. Not because you ask him to, but because you chooses to.